While we're on the subject of alternate ways to begin, you may have noticed that when you begin a project with a chain and a row of stitches in the chain, that it's very difficult to get the chain stitches exactly the same width as the rest of your stitches, and there's a tendency, if the chain is too tight, for the work to draw in, or if the chain is too loose, for the edge to be sloppy. Another limitation of the chain beginning is that it really doesn't stretch, and you end up with a project, perhaps a scarf, that at one end is quite firm and at the other end is very flexible. Sometimes this doesn't matter, but there are projects where it can be a problem. There is another way to begin work in rows, alternative to starting with a chain and working in the chain. When an identically stitched piece is begun with what we call foundation stitches, the stitches are the same size, the two edges are identical to one another, and here's the top edge, the amount of stretch and flex it has, and here's the foundation chain. So when we compare this amount of stretch with this amount of stretch, and you think about something like the cuff of a sock or the neck of a sweater, where you really want it to be able to stretch and stretch back, then beginning with a foundation stitch may be your best alternative. So let's take a look at how we work first foundation single crochet and then foundation double crochet. These are also sometimes called the chainless foundations, but that's a bit of a misnomer. They're not entirely chain free. To work foundation single crochet, we're going to begin with chain 2. The hook will now be inserted into the back of the first of those two chains, and we'll yarn over and draw up a loop. There are 2 on the hook, and here are my chains over here at the side. Now I yarn over and pull through 1, and this makes the chain at the base of the stitch I'm about to create. Then I yarn over and pull through 2. What I have now created is a single crochet stitch standing in a chain. To continue the row, I insert the hook under both front and back loop of the chain portion of that first stitch, pull up a loop, and I pull it out a little larger than I normally would because part of it will be taken up in working the stitch, and I still need to be able to get the hook in it for the next one. So I pull up a nice generous loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Insert the hook under the front and back loops of the chain portion, draw up a loop nice and loose, yarn over and pull through 1, yarn over and pull through 2. I have now 3 in the row. Sometimes people are confused about which is the chain side and which is the single crochet side. But if you think about it, your hook is always coming out of the tops of the stitches just made in the row. So when you're looking at your foundation row of stitches, suppose it's a bit longer here, when we look at our foundation row, the side that's closest to the handle of the hook is the tops of your single crochets. This is where your yarn is actually attached and coming out of. If you were to chain 1 and turn the work like turning a book, what's next for you to work in is the tops of the stitches. On the other hand, the opposite side of the chain, as we did when we were working ovals, the opposite side of the chain is what's away from the hook. Out here. This is the chain, this is the single crochet, and you're actually, as you work the foundation row, you're sort of working upside down. Just remember to find the tops of your stitches by looking immediately to the right of the loop on the hook. Foundation double crochet is similar to the single crochet variety and is used when the first row of the pattern consists of a row of double crochet stitches. We begin with 3 chain, yarn over, insert the hook into the back of the first chain made, that is the 3rd chain from the hook, yarn over and draw up a loop. Again, we want to draw that loop a little more loosely than we would normally. Yarn over and pull through 1 to make the chain. I find it helpful to pinch that loop so that I'll be able to find it again easily. Then I yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. I now have a turning chain and 1 double crochet made. I yarn over, insert the hook under both loops of the chain portion of the previous stitch, draw up a loop nice and loose, yarn over, pull through 1 to make the chain, pinch it with my fingers, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and we continue across the row. This is a little slower than making a chain, but when we finish this first row, we have not only the chain, but that difficult, awkward first row worked in the chain has been worked right along with it. So it takes a little longer than making a row of chain, but it's a lot quicker than making both a chain and the first row in the chain. So here's my little beginning foundation, and we can see that it has a nice braided edge on the bottom that's equal to the braided edge on the top. The bottom edge stretches just like the top edge, and I'm 1 row further into the pattern than I would have been. When converting a pattern written with a chain, the math is simple. For double crochet, work 2 fewer foundation double crochets than the directed number of chain, and you will have the right number of stitches for row 1. Then you can proceed with row 2 of the pattern. In single crochet, work 1 fewer foundation stitch than the pattern tells you to make chains, because there's fewer turning chains at the beginning of row 1 of the pattern.